What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about why Iceland could join the European Union. So, here in the United States, to be honest, we really don't hear much about Iceland and what's going on, but this sounds like some pretty big, important news. Like something is changing in the EU. So today, I really want to check out this video and learn about what exactly is happening and what this all means for the future of Iceland. So let's take a look.
After years of so-called enlargement fatigue, it suddenly looks like the EU is moving towards another round of expansion. Brussels is working on
Oh,
a two-speed plan that could give Ukraine partial membership as early as next
oh,
year.
okay,
Accession frontrunner Montenegro closed another negotiating chapter last month, and now it's been
okay.
reported that Iceland is weighing a vote on restarting EU membership talks as early as August.
Okay. I didn't know this was a thing. I don't know much about the European Union in general, to be honest. I know some things, but so they weren't even open to accepting new members. I thought you could just like apply and try to ask to be part of the European Union, but no, there has to be like there are periods of time when they're open to accepting new countries, I guess, and this is one of those times where this might happen. So this is like big. This is a big deal for Iceland. This is like a big opportunity. Or assuming Iceland wants to join the EU, I don't know, but this makes it sound like you do.
After the country suspended negotiations over a decade ago.
Oh, Iceland tried to negotiate to become part of the EU like 10 years ago, and now it's happening again. Okay. Is it going to be different somehow, or maybe they're going to talk about that?
So in this video, we're going to look into Iceland's relationship with the EU, why joining the EU is back on the table, and how soon it could possibly happen.
Wow. Yeah, I don't really, since, I'm not familiar with a lot of European stuff or how you guys think or make decisions on this stuff. Like, it seems to me like there's a ton of countries that are part of the EU and then just like a couple that are not. And I don't really know what the benefit of staying out of it or the rationale is, or why now Iceland wants to be part of it, or maybe 10 years ago you did too. I don't know. There's a lot of things as an American I just don't understand about the whole situation. So this is actually very interesting to me.
For years, Iceland has been deeply integrated with the EU. In the 70s, the country became part of the European Free Trade Association, the European Economic
Oh.
Area, and signed a bilateral free trade agreement with the bloc. Since then,
Oh.
Iceland further integrated with the EU by signing up to the Schengen area and the Dublin Agreement on asylum policy.
Oh. So it's like Iceland is as much a part of the EU as you can be without being in the EU. Like, I know if you're in the EU, like, there's a lot of freedom of travel between the countries, and you're supposed to, like, use the euro, I think, and other stuff. So, it seems like Iceland, for a long period of time, wanted a lot of the benefits of collaborating with the EU, but not being a part of it, or I didn't know that. Okay.
During the aftermath of the financial crisis, there was considerable talk as to whether Iceland should push forward and join the EU fully. For some, membership of the EU, and specifically adoption of the euro, was seen as a safe haven following the
Right.
near collapse of the Icelandic krona in 2008. So much so that in 2009, Iceland formally began the process to join the EU.
Oh, okay. So that's what they're talking about, like a decade or more. 2009. That was almost 20 years ago. God, how did that happen? Anyway, 2009 was almost 20 years ago. Oh my God. Um, Iceland tried to become part of the EU, and what? Like, you can actually be turned down?
under the Social Democrat Alliance-led government. This was at a time when the krona had lost half its value, and when Iceland became the first Western European nation in over 25 years to appeal to the IMF for financial assistance.
Oh.
However, a key stumbling block to joining was the EU's common fisheries policy, which would allow fishermen across the EU access to Iceland's waters. For a country where fishing occupies such a central place in society and the economy, employing over 5% of the workforce and accounting for an estimated 25% of GDP, when
Okay.
indirect effects are included, giving
Okay.
up control of their fisheries was a very controversial issue.
Oh, well okay. Perfect. That explains everything. That's okay, now I understand a lot better. Iceland is interested in many ways of being part of the EU, especially from a financial standpoint and the security of using the euro, the power of the euro. The euro is worth like more than the US dollar right now, right? So that's pretty good. But there's some weird clause where if you're in the EU, if you're a member, you have to allow everyone to fish, to do fishing in all the countries, or which obviously affects some countries way more than others. So it's kind of a strange policy, in my opinion. Iceland, if like a huge part of their economy is fishing, this is way bigger of a deal to them. Like, if allowing other countries to just come and fish and take their some of their fish and I assume they export it, or it's a big way of generating money for them. That would really hurt Iceland in that way. Whereas for other countries that are like landlocked and not even by water, this policy doesn't affect them at all. They don't even have fish. So this is very strange to me, but the policy, I guess. But so it makes a lot of sense that Iceland, perhaps based on that alone, didn't want to join. But then what has changed now?
In 2013, the topic of joining lost traction after the Social Democrat Alliance lost the general elections to two centre-right Eurosceptic opposition parties that later formed a coalition.
Okay.
The new government put negotiations on hold and in 2015 dropped Iceland's EU bid entirely.
Wow.
Since then, EU membership hasn't really been discussed, and nearly every poll has shown that more citizens are against joining the EU than for it.
Wow. Like, even now? Especially because of this fish. Is it all because of the fishing thing? Okay.
However, in recent years, the debate of joining the EU resurfaced. There's been a few reasons for this, most
Okay.
notably Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022,
Sure.
and growing economic uncertainty on the island. For context, while Iceland ranks among Europe's wealthiest nations on a per capita basis, successive governments have struggled to bring down inflation and borrowing costs, which are some of the highest in the OECD.
I didn't know that Iceland was so successful. Good for you guys. Like, one of the highest per capita, wealthiest countries. That's really cool.
This has led to a difficult cost of living crisis, all exacerbated by Iceland's vulnerable fishing and tourism-dependent economy, which has suffered a slowdown in recent years. As a
Okay.
result, some argue that Iceland could benefit from the expanded market access and trade-related advantages offered by EU membership.
Makes sense.
In 2022, members of the Social Democrat Alliance requested the centre-right government hold an EU referendum and created a draft bill a year later.
Okay.
Then, in late 2024, escalating public discontent over the cost of living crisis and disagreements over migration and foreign policy within the government led to its collapse and fresh elections in November.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I had no idea about all that. Huge reform in Iceland, government reform, new elections, new leadership. That's a massive, like, big changes for Iceland recently. Wow. Okay. And maybe this will just be a part of that. Another big change, joining the EU. It seems Iceland is interested, maybe out of necessity, because there's a lot of pain, financial pain in Iceland, and this could be a way of relieving some of that, but you might have to give up some other things, or I don't know. But it seems like Iceland has been thinking about this a lot.
These elections were essentially won by the Social Democrat Alliance, and after forming a coalition with the People's Party and Liberal Reformists, the new government agreed to hold a referendum on resuming negotiations on EU membership by 2027. However, in the last year or so, Iceland's growing unease about its place in an increasingly geopolitically unstable world has fostered a new sense of urgency.
Sure,
Soon
sure,
after
sure. Times are crazy. A lot of this uncertainty in the world has been caused not just by like Russia, but by the United States and Donald Trump and what we're doing. And yeah, times have gotten pretty crazy. So that makes sense.
Soon after the Social Democrats won the election, Donald Trump returned to the White House and began threatening to annex Greenland.
Yeah.
Both Iceland and Greenland occupy strategic locations in the North Atlantic, just south of the Arctic Circle, which has apparently become a massive point of strategic interest for the US.
Is this like implying that if Trump is threatening Greenland, Trump could threaten Iceland? I mean, there was a time where I would say no, but it's like now, given everything Trump has said and done and the threats and the whole Greenland situation, nothing is impossible. So I get it.
These anxieties were exacerbated by the fact that, in January, Trump mentioned Iceland on multiple occasions during the Davos summit as a point of strategic interest to the
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not realize that. That's, yeah, I could see where that would be scary. Uh, er, well, did Trump like accidentally mix up Greenland and Iceland? Or like was it something stupid or accidental or it's hard to say with him.
US, although he was probably mixing up the country's name with its neighbour Greenland.
Oh my
Then,
God.
earlier this month, Trump's nominee for ambassador to Iceland, Billy Long, joked that the country would become the 52nd US state and that he would be governor.
This is everything that's wrong with the United States. This is everything that's wrong with us right now. Our ambassador to Iceland joked about taking over Iceland. That's totally unacceptable. That's embarrassing. Every American should be embarrassed at our representatives doing like that. I didn't know about that. That's insane. That's not right. That's
Trump's interest in the area is especially concerning for Reykjavik, as it does not have an army and relies on its membership in NATO and a 1951 bilateral defence agreement with the US for its security. Facing up to the fact that the US is no longer a reliable partner for Iceland's security, to say the least, the incumbent government has reportedly pushed forward the referendum to restart EU talks.
Yeah, a lot of countries are starting to move away from depending on the US for anything. Iceland depended on us for protection, and now we're threatening it. It's a sad time for sure. It's sad to see, as an American, it's sad to see that some of the reason for this is caused by the United States. That's really sad to see.
According to Politico, the Icelandic parliament is expected to announce the date for an EU referendum within the next few weeks,
Wow.
which could be as early as August.
Oh, wow.
At the same time, the EU is starting to take its own security more seriously. Only a couple of weeks ago, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen pushed back against Mark Rutte's suggestion that Europe needs the US for its security, and suggested fortifying the EU's Article 42.7, which obliges member states to provide aid and assistance by all the means in their power if another is attacked, to become more like NATO's once ironclad Article 5.
Yes, I mean, clearly there's a lot of countries in Europe that are like trying to get away from US dependence, even for military and defense, which was kind of like our thing. You know, that's what the US is like proud of and what we think we're the best at. And now it's just like we're scaring everyone or pushing everyone away, or we're not seen as reliable, which is sad. But even from my point of view, I can see why. Like, it makes sense, unfortunately.
Meanwhile, there's been numerous signs of a strengthening in EU-Icelandic relations in recent months, including a flurry of diplomatic exchanges. Last month, the EU's
Okay.
Enlargement Commissioner Marta Kos met with Iceland's Foreign Minister, and von der Leyen met with Iceland's Prime Minister, with a
Oh.
visit to the Arctic region due again in March. Both sides emphasise that membership and partnership is increasingly becoming about security and stability in a turbulent geopolitical environment.
So, I didn't know that. From Iceland's point of view, joining the European Union is maybe a good financial decision and a good security decision. So this is making this when I was wondering what has changed, well, the United States has changed a lot of things, and Iceland is having issues and adapting to a changing world, and a lot of things have changed.
So, how likely is it that Iceland could soon become an EU member state? Well, opinion polls from 2025 suggest a narrow majority in favour of EU membership. And if
Oh.
Icelanders vote yes, according to an EU official cited by Politico, Iceland could join the EU in just a year, before any
Oh.
other candidate country. This is
So this is kind of new. Like, there's now a majority in Iceland where people are okay with this. So this really looks like, from what I'm seeing, this really looks like likely to happen.
This is mainly because Iceland has already adopted most EU laws and is already a member of a number of EU treaties such as Schengen and the EEA.
There you go.
Iceland is helped further by the fact that the UK, Iceland's main rival in the fishing industry, is no longer a member of the bloc. During 2009 to 2013, at the time of Iceland's negotiations, the two had a dispute dubbed the Mackerel War, which saw the EU threaten trade sanctions on Iceland. But with Britain now out of the EU, fishing rights could be less of a barrier.
Okay.
As we mentioned earlier, the latest edition.
Oh, okay, so that's it. Yeah, okay. So there's a ton of reasons why Iceland is more enthusiastic about joining the EU now more than ever, maybe. It was sad to hear a lot of the things about the US, I'm not going to lie, but it's definitely the truth, and the truth hurts sometimes, I guess. So, but yeah, like I said, here in the United States, we don't really hear stuff like this. This is not what's on our news. Certainly not stuff about Iceland, so this was really cool. Like, it makes a lot of sense, and it's something I feel like I normally would never get to learn about. So I'm glad I took some time here to learn about this. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on this whole situation, Iceland and the EU and the craziness in the world. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.